You are listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist and someone who is very mindful and aware of the decline in our collective mental health. I created this podcast so that we could have more direct and honest conversations about difficult topics and difficult issues. It's my goal to have honest but direct conversations that we need to have that are necessary. It's also my goal to give my listeners the information that they need in order to find their own mental health and mental wellness. This is where you will find the information that you need to be your own healer. And of course, all of this is based on years of clinical experience and expertise. Thank you for being here. Let's dive right in. All right, everybody, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Today's topic is going to be maybe a little bit complicated, a little bit difficult. I'm going to piggyback just a little bit from the episode I did on borderline personality disorder. We're going to talk a little bit about narcissistic personality disorder in this episode, but specifically narcissistic abuse. Narcissism specifically, very hot topic these days, huge buzzword on the interwebs, huge buzzword on the social medias. There's a lot of people talking about narcissism and narcissists. Frankly, I believe that the vast majority of them have no idea what they're talking about. Be careful who you get your information from when it comes to narcissism. I wouldn't listen to anybody who has no clinical experience or background. Ton of people on the internet labeling other people as narcissists, and 99% of the time I think to myself yeah, you don't know you don't know what you're talking about. So we're gonna bust a few myths, but mostly we're gonna focus on this thing called narcissistic trauma, which I have noticed, I've observed. It's different. There's something different about narcissistic trauma. There's something going on here. It's different. It just is. It's not your typical trauma profile. There also seems to be a lot of people these days, frankly, mostly women, who are putting themselves front and center, saying, "Oh, I'm a survivor of narcissistic trauma," and most of the time I don't believe them because those people are generally very quiet. They're usually hanging back. Usually small and hidden and hanging back, not loud and proud, here I am type of attitude. And I think we have to really consider the fact that we live in a culture where people will say or do virtually anything to get those views and to get those clicks and those likes. The human need for validation, it knows no bounds. Absolutely no limits to it. The need for validation, it can twist you. It can warp you. It can turn you into something else. I'm kind of veering off here, but this is the topic of the show. This is the topic of this episode. I'm going to talk about narcissism, narcissistic trauma, and promote a workbook that I recently created for people who have narcissistic trauma. And I'll get there. I'm going to break down what I actually think. I don't think, as for the most part, psychologists and mental health professionals are digging deep enough when it comes to narcissistic trauma. Like, when it's the real deal, something is very, very different about that type of trauma. It just fundamentally changes people. So I'm going to get into all of that. But first, I have a little snippet from the internet. Forgive the bad audio quality. I'm a therapist. I'm not an audio technician. Short, but this is interesting to me. Okay, here we go.
I have terrible news. It turns out that when you do eat enough protein and fiber, and primarily from whole foods, and get outside and move your body, you do actually feel better. Sorry. Okay.
The girl in this video looks young. Well, she can't be more than 22, maybe 23 at the most. I wanted to highlight this clip because this is something that I have seen with a lot of people in the last several years, especially the young people, especially teenagers, especially young adults. They don't want the right answers to be the right answers. So in other words, like there is a formula, there is a correct or right answer or solution to things like depression and anxiety. And too many people just flat out reject those solutions because they don't like them. So when they find them and they use them, suddenly it's, oh crap, I didn't want that to work. And I know she's kidding. I know this is supposed to be a joke, kind of. But still, at the same time, she's speaking to something like very, very real that I see in people. It's like they don't just want the right answers. They want to like the right answers. They want the right answers to be exactly what they want them to be. The solution to many of our mental health problems absolutely exist. Too many people reject them simply because they don't like them. They wanted to come in some other form. If you ask me, this is a little bit childish. I did a whole episode on how there's just not enough adults going around. There's not enough adult attitudes going around or mindsets going around. And collectively, I think we need to adopt the mindset that if it works, we should be happy about it. Stop getting hung up with, oh, I want it to be something other than what it is. And the reason why, by the way, young people like this don't like the right answers is because A, it requires effort, and B, it requires them to take responsibility for their lives. When you still think about the world in childish ways, you want someone or something in to swoop in and just fix everything for you. Becoming an adult is realizing that you don't have a fairy godmother who's just going to just pop up out of the blue and wave her magic wand and fix your life for you. There are several differences between people who get better, see their mental health improve, versus those who don't. And one of those differences is people who get better, they just do what works. They stop making a fuss about it. They stop expecting it to come in some easy magic pill. They just do it. They just shut up. They stop complaining and they just do it. And again, to me, it's so interesting to see so many young people where they just like, well, because I don't like that method, I'm not going to do it. It's like, okay, well, then stay miserable. Like go ahead and keep like throwing your life away. I'm thinking of one individual in particular that is like coming to grips with the fact that life, if he wants his life to be better, he has to show up. He's just got to show up and like, do it, put the effort in. That's the truth. People who get better put in effort. They're the ones who fix their lives. They're the ones who are the heroes to their own stories. The longer that you resist that basic core truth, the longer you're going to stay miserable and the harder it's going to get. And frankly, the more of your life you're going to waste. So if you want to have good mental health, here's some basic, very basic advice. Just accept the right answers as they come, right? Just do it. Stop making a fuss about how you don't like it. You want something else to fix it. Just do what it takes. That's how you get better. As a side note, getting better, feeling better is awesome. I mean, it turns out, speaking from personal experience here, but also working with dozens and dozens, hundreds of clients over the years, doing better and feeling better on a consistent basis, turns out it's pretty fucking awesome. So yeah, just do it. Just do it. And you might even be sitting there like, okay, so what do I do specifically? That's going to have to be for another episode. A concept I have in mind for the next week's episode, or it might end up being in 2 weeks. I'm keeping myself really busy these days, so the podcast episodes aren't getting published as regularly as I was hoping. But anyways, the next episode I could see being the differences between people who get better and those who don't. Like what is the most important mental health practices, basics, and just doing them consistently. So anyways, without further ado, let's dive into this topic. Let's talk about narcissism. So first and foremost, I want to get something out of the way. I believe that there is a real fundamental difference between people who have like a full-blown case of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, versus those who are just showing some narcissistic behaviors or narcissistic traits. The latter of those two things, the narcissistic traits, far more common these days. If you ask me, it's mostly a sign of immaturity. People haven't grown up. They haven't gotten over themselves. They are trying to they continue to force life to work according to a certain story in their head that's not based in reality, that people ought to be thinking about them, considering them, that they're more important. And it's not a conscious thing. Like being conscious or aware, that's an adult thing, right? If you're not conscious or aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your behavior, your beliefs, your attitudes, your words, etc., if you're not consciously aware of those things, more deliberate, more intentional, right? You haven't grown up. If you're just on autopilot and you're just sort of like flying by the seat of your pants every day and wondering why it's a shit show, you got to stop. You got to watch, you got to connect, you got to be connected to your own awareness. Why does this keep happening in my life? How am I responsible for this? So for this content, when I talk about narcissism, I'm not talking about childish people that you see online who just haven't really grown up or matured. I'm talking about people who have narcissistic personality disorder. So let's talk about that. What is personality disorder? I'm going to pull some ideas from other previous episodes, specifically the episode I did on borderline personality disorder. If you ask me, this is my theory. It's just a theory, okay? Borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder are just two subtypes of the same disorder. I'm also going to once again refer to the psychological theory on the shattered mind, the shattered psyche, where basically your mind is broken up into your psyche is just broken up into a lot of different pieces. And when it comes to these pieces, we've also used the terms like parts or fragments. I say fragments a lot. Fragments is part of my jargon. And so if you ask me, when those parts or pieces or fragments, excuse me, got a lot of crap in my throat right now. When those fragments, or like when there's a ton of them, and when they're not integrated at all or disintegrated, right? We're talking about integrity versus the opposite, like fragmented. The more fragmented you are, the more likely you are to show a personality disorder, because it's like those different fragments, it's like they will take the driver's seat at different intervals. When you're talking to someone or dealing with someone who has a true personality disorder, you're going to notice, or you should notice, that they're different people at different times, different situations. I mean, literally, you can have the nastiest fight in the world. Just horrible fight with them, and then the next day they're smiling, going, "Hi, good morning, how are you?" As though nothing had happened the previous day. And then you're like, "What about last night?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" And seriously, some of them, I believe, dissociate. They have poor memories when it comes to that. Or it was like that was somebody else, that wasn't me. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to a personality disorder versus people who have what seem to be narcissistic or selfish traits. One of the most common traits about personality disorders that I don't think we talk enough about, which I think is one of the most telling traits, is like feeling extremely empty inside. And I'm pretty sure my last episode previous to this one, I talked about emptiness, chronic emptiness. It's very uncomfortable, very nasty. It's a very bad feeling to like look inward and just feel totally empty and hollow inside. People with BPD, borderline personality, or narcissistic personality, I believe, experience this to a much greater degree, which is why they have such significant emotional dysfunction. The biggest myth when it comes to narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, is that these people love themselves or that they have high self-esteem. Like, I will get online, I will see people say this, hear them say, "Oh, well, narcissists have high self-esteem." No, they do not. Trust me, they do not. What you're seeing out of them, it's a dog and pony show to trick you, to fool you, to manipulate you, to avoid feeling vulnerable in any given social situation. And in fact, they're so lacking in self-esteem and so hollow That's why we see them do what they do. If they had self-love, if they truly love themselves, if they truly had self-esteem, they would not be as cruel as they are to people. They wouldn't be as nasty or manipulative. They wouldn't use or exploit people. Like truly happy, self-loving people with self-esteem have absolutely no use for doing that to other people, for harming other people. And in fact, they avoid it because people with actual self-love and actual self-esteem, they've learned that when they hurt other people, it hurts them too. So they're far less likely to do it. So this is my number one indicator that when it comes to narcissism, like if I see someone online and they say, oh, narcissists they love themselves and they have high self-esteem, just like that, in my mind, you have no idea what you're talking about. It's totally false. Narcissists are good at sort of curating a mask. They will look like they're strong and powerful and smart. They're none of those things. They're weak as piss. They fall apart very easily. If you know how to manage them, they fall apart very easily. They're not intelligent. They're just very manipulative. They're really, really good, and this is going to be the core of our narcissistic trauma and abuse content here. They're really, really good at bypassing, getting through the layers of your psyche and getting to the innermost core of who you are and basically destroying it. They're extremely good at bypassing your defenses, triggering your deepest shame, your deepest self-hatred, your deepest emptiness. They're very good at bypassing your defenses and triggering those things inside of you. How they are able to do this so skillfully is the only thing they're frankly good at, usually, to be honest. How they're good at doing that, I don't know. I don't understand it. It's a little spooky to me, but there are a lot of things, frankly, about the human psyche that are kind of spooky to me, including like the fragmentation factor that I talked about. Super spooky. It's really, really spooky. When it comes to narcissists, they lack this thing that I call substance. This is just the word that I'm using. This is just my lingo. When I talk about substance or people having substance, I'm talking about like virtues or values, character. Maybe they have courage or strength or some integrity. Right? They have purpose. They have meaning. They have connection. There's maybe some degrees of happiness. Okay, this is what I call substance. The more substance you have in life, the better you feel. The better you feel about yourself, the better you feel about your life. We live in a culture without substance. Pretty sure I covered this 2 weeks ago in my previous episode about emptiness, being hollow. We just inherently now live in a society that is inherently meaningless and hollow. It's not to say that you can't find things of substance, but it's not being packaged or sold to you. Things of substance, right? They require effort. They require self-reflection. It's a painful process, but as they say, the road to heaven feels like hell, and the road to hell feels like heaven. So if you're a person with any substance and you end up in let's say, a romantic relationship with a narcissist, because having a narcissistic parent, I mean, that's kind of a different animal, frankly. But let's say that you're romantically involved or end up married, say, to someone who is very narcissistic, and you're a person that maybe has some substance. You value kindness. Maybe you have some integrity. Maybe you just work to be a good person. And now you're with someone who has, like, think of someone who has zero substance. To me, that's truly what a true narcissist is. They have no substance. There's nothing in them. And they can sense that other people have substance. They're threatened by it. And so when you're in a relationship with them, they have a way of bypassing, again, they're going to bypass your defenses. They're going to find your substance, and they're basically, there's a way that they destroy it. I think they pull it out of you. I think they suck it away from you, like, oh, this is mine now, right? You find yourself being self-sacrificing for the narcissist. You give everything to them, but it's like a black hole. No matter how perfect you make things, it's never good enough for them. When they bypass your defenses, and I believe that they really, really get in there. And I call it like on the spiritual level. Now, I know some people react to the term spiritual or spirituality. To me, this term is very subjective. The definition of spirituality, it's a mile wide, mile deep. It depends on your own interpretation. So for me, I'm talking about substance, right? Having a meaningful experience is spiritual. Having a good relationship with yourself is spiritual. Being in love, very spiritual. So mostly when I talk about spiritual, I'm not talking about rubbing crystals or like opening your third eye. Okay. I'm not saying those things are bogus. I'm just saying that I'm trying to keep it on a personal level here, right? This substance that you have, it's a spiritual thing, okay? Again, narcissists, true narcissists are totally hollow, totally empty inside. So they're going to attack. They're going to find a way to bypass your defenses. Usually what they do is they find a way to trigger your shame and your fear. They can notice when it works, by the way. So like with a narcissist, let's say that you you cooked something and you left the pot on the stove. You wanted to eat it while it was still warm. You meant to go back and deal with the dishes. You forgot. Okay. I mean, we all have slip ups. We all get distracted. You know, things pull our attention away. We forget, right? So with a narcissist, they come in and they see that pot. They don't see a problem that just needs to be handled or fixed or dealt with, right? They see something wrong with you. And they make every small thing as a shame-based. There's something wrong specifically about you. If you're low on milk, okay, and right, and they notice that you're low on milk, and you were at the grocery store yesterday, and you didn't get more milk, then what? They're not going to say, "Oops, we forgot milk. We got to make an extra trip to the store." No, they don't do that. Right? They don't see it as, oh, we have a small issue, we have a small problem, let's just fix it and move on. No, no, no. That's not what they do. That's not what they do at all. Instead, what they do is, oh, you didn't buy milk like I expected you to, and now that means you're bad. You're a bad wife. You're a bad husband. You're a bad spouse. You're just a bad person. What's wrong with you? Why did you do that? Right? It's always an attack on your corest self, on your deepest core. If you have some sort of virtue in you, some sort of substance, and they're threatened by it, they're going to attack it so that you feel ashamed of it. So you come to see this good thing that you do and twist it and warp it and make it look like a bad thing, and therefore, right, you as bad because you have that. Well, the reason why they do that is they're threatened by it. So they have to destroy it. Like it causes them pain. To see that you have this thing that they don't. So they have to destroy it. So it's not necessarily, and I'll get to this, it's not necessarily that they succeed in destroying it. What they have done is played a trick with your ego so that your ego disconnects you from those things within yourself. So let's say that you're a kind person. Okay. Kindness is it's a value, it's a virtue. And if you're a kind person, a narcissist is going to see it as a weakness and they're going to attack it. They're going to ridicule you. They're going to tell you that you're gullible, easy to take advantage of, that you're a bad person because of how stupid and gullible you are. Again, see, these personal attacks come in. It's not that, oh, hey, you might be misplacing your kindness sometimes. So you should be careful because that can hurt, right? If they cared about you, they would put it in that context, but they don't care about you. So they always, always attack you, bring you down, pull you down. So you start to believe because like they are, thing about narcissistic trauma, narcissists are unrelentless. They cannot give you an inch. It is a constant fight to gain or keep the ground that you have. You let your guard down for 1 second and they are moving in on you. They might offer fake bids for love or maybe even fake apologies to get you to let your guard down. Or they might even do things to build your trust up simply so they can exploit it. They will exploit your trust and then treat you like you were the stupid one for being so trusting. So over the course of time, they alienate you from yourself. They break your substance down. They destroy it. They alienate you from it. They make you ashamed of it. So what I believe is probably happening with a lot of people, this is my theory, people who have actually been through this type of abuse, this type of trauma, they're afraid to return to their natural tendency for kindness, for example. I'm just using this as an example. There's lots of others as well, because it has been anchored to frequent pain and shame and harm and more trauma, the destruction of the self. So they don't even try, like they don't even want to engage in that inner work because of how painful it's become. So after the relationship ends, which it often does, not always. Unfortunately, narcissists are sometimes successful at breaking people down enough that they've just turned the other person into an empty shell. And that empty shell of a person just gets up day to day, goes through the motions, and they were gone a long time ago. If you manage to break free from one of these relationships, because you recognize, like, I lost myself, I'm gone, I don't know who I am anymore, I'm turning into an empty shell, I just feel empty inside, okay, that is the result of narcissistic abuse and trauma. Essentially, right, if you're post-relationship, it worked, unfortunately, right? The good news is you've moved on. As a side note, if you have been through one of these relationships, I would really, really strongly advise you to do your best to avoid getting into any more relationships because you're going to attract this again. But sometimes, honestly, people can't help themselves. Like, they will acknowledge, like, yes, I should not date. I get clients sometimes where I'm like, honestly, if I was you, I wouldn't date for a while until I get some of this shit figured out. Like, because, I mean, dating can be your biggest storm in life. I mean, it can take your house of cards that you've been carefully building and dash it to pieces. But frankly, some people just can't seem to help themselves. They're like compulsively get on dating apps or compulsively get on Instagram. Compulsively can't keep themselves from getting into new relationships, even though it's just a disaster. But if you have had a lot of narcissistic trauma and you don't work on it, you're far, far, far more likely to repeat that relationship. So if you ask me, because this is an inside, a seriously deep inside problem, we have to go deep inside to fix it. Okay. So I think the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to mental health and improving something like this or working on helping something like this, they're looking externally. What medication can I take? What daily practices can I do? And I just don't think any of it works. I think the whole narcissistic trauma scene really falls short because it's like, I don't think we're getting to the core of the problem. The core of the problem is, to me, that deep spiritual part. Okay. To me, if you want to fix it, it's got to be an inside out process, not an outside in type of process. To me, it is required to do that deep inner work, like deep inner work. If you've listened to my podcast before, you know that I'm really big on shadow work. I'm really big on Jungian psychology. If you're not familiar, Carl Jung, one of the OGs of modern psychotherapy and psychology. I love Carl. I think Carl was amazing. I think he was a genius. So that's to say, if you've had narcissistic trauma, if you've been through narcissistic abuse, and you know it changed you on the inside, and you know something is different, something's wrong, you probably feel or experience an intense fear of like going in there and having a look and getting it figured out. Understandable, totally understandable. Totally understandable. However, to me, this is the only way though. This is the only way you're ever going to get this figured out is if you take this route, if you go in the inside and carefully do the work on the inside. So all that being said, I mentioned it earlier. I recently completed a workbook, 200-page workbook. There's some right? There's some narratives in it. There's some explaining stuff in it, but there's a lot of journal prompts, tons and tons and tons of journal prompts. 3 phases in it, okay, in terms of working on the narcissistic trauma. I like to think that this material that I've created, this content that I've created for this specific issue, is unique in that it's all inner work, all of it. And yes, it does help to do some physical things like go exercise, go outside, be in nature, stuff like that. But those things may feel totally empty and hollow until you reconnect with yourself. So this workbook is called Restoring the Self. It's all about restoring, reconnecting to yourself. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's scary. Yes, you can do it. I really believe it's the only way. So if you've been through narcissistic trauma, if you've used other material, if you've reviewed other content about healing narcissistic trauma and it didn't get you anywhere, I would ask yourself one question: was it all external stuff? Well, did you go to the doctor? Did you exercise, right? Did you go to a painting class and you didn't feel any better, right? Then you may want to give this a try, because again, it is all about the inner work. As a side note too, I'm also a big fan of internal family systems therapy. I am very partial to this approach when it comes to trauma, especially including narcissistic trauma. It's very, very inward experience, in terms of reconnecting to yourself, working with your different parts, your different fragments, and creating more integrity and reconnecting with yourself. Okay, so my workbook is published. You can find it on Amazon. Again, Restoring the Self. So you can download it for Kindle or you can purchase it directly off of my website, download it from my website. I'll put both of the links in the show notes. So time to wrap it up. I got other shit to do. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, tell your friends. Hopefully that gives some insights on narcissism and narcissistic trauma if you've been through it. I see you. I feel your pain. I've seen what it does to people, and I'm like, whoa, that's horrible. If you got out of a narcissistic relationship, if you're romantically involved or married to a narcissist and you managed to get out, congrats, good job. You did it. You did a big thing. That is a huge, huge milestone. Make sure you give yourself a big pat on the back because not everybody's able to escape it. So thank you again for listening. Thanks for being here. Go check out the workbook. And remember, everybody, you must do hard things.